Morning, really. Um, my name is Vinny K, and I am back to discuss Rush, the band Rush. This time I'm talking about their album Test for Echo, which I have right here. This is the CD. I lost the inner album cover sleeves for this one, but the CD still works and sounds great. But I do have this. This is the tour book from the amazing tour back in 96, 97. And that is the album cover right there. This is the album from Rush from 1996. It is their 16th studio album. And it's been quite some time since I made another one of these. Last time I talked about the album Counterparts. And this is the long awaited follow up in 1996. So it took a much longer break between Counterparts and Test for Echo. And it seemed that would be a pattern going forward with their records, where there'd be more and more of a break between albums. Although this one in particular is the last one for a long time, because this is the last album before Neil Peart's horrible tragedies, which I'm not going to really get into this time, but maybe the next album, Vapor Trail, because that album was a very important record because they were coming off of that. But anyway, this time around, we're talking about Test for Echo. And yeah, it was about, what, 2, 3 years? 3 years after Counterparts. And a lot happened in that time, of course. And as always, in case you're new to my discussions, with these discussions, I'm basically talking about Rush and my own personal journey with Rush in my life, because they are such a big part of my life. And talking about it in that context, but in the comments, you could talk about with me where you were when you heard a certain record. Maybe this was your first album that you saw them on in concert, or got the first album and then went back and learned the rest of their discography. Like me, I started with Signals, but for some people, this is their first record. So if that's the case, let me know where you were, how they fall into your journey in your life, because these are the soundtracks of our lives. These bands and our albums, they become our albums, really. The albums of the bands we love is the soundtrack of our lives, and it's really important because I reference every time I think about my life and where I was at a certain year. The first thing that pops in my mind, well, all right, Rush album. What a Rush album was out? Oh, it was Presto. Oh, it was Power Windows. What? I'm always thinking of in terms of that because it is uh, synonymous, really, with my life. But this is for Test for Echo, the time between albums, Counterparts and Test for Echo, 1994 to 96. Well, the album came out in 93, the Counterparts, but their tour was in 94. So the last we heard of them after they put the album out was the tour, and that was 1994. I had seen them 3 times that tour. But you go fast forward from between 1994 and 1996. Even after they finished the tour, a lot happened in 94 and 95 and 96. I mean, in the world was really rapidly changing. And the album reflects that. The band had a lot of changes as well. Um, One of the most notable things was Neil Peart going back and taking drum lessons with, I guess his name was Freddie Gruber, this jazz guy, drummer, master, because he wanted to loosen up his feel, because he felt like, I guess, playing the click tracks and stuff, it was getting a little stiff for his liking, and he wanted to kind of loosen up a bit. And I think he achieved that. He definitely achieved that with this record and going forward. It definitely benefited the band, but he spent, like, I don't know, 6 months or something like that, or a year, uh, doing that. And I think also we had a lot went on with Rush. You had Alex Lifeson doing solo record. It was really more of a side project called Victor. That was really interesting. Pretty cool record, very different. And I love the fact that they called it Victor and not the Alex Lifeson album or something. I mean, but I'll get into the solo projects another time. So that's basically what's going on in the world. Like I said, going through a lot of changes in current events and different things. We're going through the mid '90s here, and I was going through a lot of changes because I got not kicked out, but my father sold the house that we grew up in for 26 years at this point, and it was my first time having to move out and get all of us, me and my brothers, and having to move out and get our own places because that was it. He was selling the place and moving on, and so I got my first apartment. So I know for a lot of people that are older than me, you turn 18 and you go to college, and then you move out of the house and you get your own place, and or maybe some people my age. But for me, it was 26 years old, and that's where I was at during this time. I was just moving into my first apartment, getting used to that, and that's when I first heard. I think it was around September. I'm about 3 months into my new apartment, which was literally right next door to where I lived in all my life, and that's when I heard the song "Just for Echo" on WBAB. As always, they're always the station where I hear the new Rush album. New Rush songs, the first time, and as always, I was totally blown away. Rush never ceases to surprise me with their sound and where they go from album to album. The one thing I always notice with them is the fact that they always seem to correct whatever it is on the previous album. Whatever, as great as the album was, whatever needs to be better, they always make it better. And that's the first thing that struck me with the song "Test for Echo." That was the first. And as always, I always catch it like midway into it, but yet I'm still blown away. That always happened in the past. Hearing Force 10, or most of the time, I always catch the song kind of in the guitar solo. Big Money was like that. Soto Hotel was like that, where I just kind of hear it midway through, and I'm like, "Ooh, what the hell is that? Oh, it's Rush." I think there was a couple of occasions where I heard the new song. I think it was Dreamline. I heard the whole thing and Between the Wheels. But most of the time, I'm always like flicking on the radio and it just happens to be on. And I'm like, whoa, oh, that's a new Rush. Cool. Oh my God, yeah. And I'm taping it. And next thing you know, I'm like listening to it like 100 times because it's like, even if it's the last minute or so of the song, I listen to it like 100 times because it's like, it's the new song. But this one, Test for Echo, man, really bringing back a lot of their proggier elements in that particular song. Anyway, I thought it really, really showcased the band stretching out and being proggy again. And a lot of people reacted to. I'll talk about the reactions a little bit later, but different opinions. But in my opinion, the song "Test for Echo" is one of the best songs they had done in a long time. I mean, like, just bringing it back, elements from the classic sound. I'm talking about that because Catapults kind of kicked it off. I always say this: the albums go in cycles, and I think Catapults established the fact that they have returned to their classic sound. They went into their synth period with Signals, which was my personal golden period as far as getting into Rush. But they circled back. That's what happened. They circled back to their classic sound. I think the difference now being from Counterparts and on, because they work with Peter Collins, he really taught them the importance of songwriting and arranging in songwriting, your arrangements. So when they dealt with them and with the albums Power Windows, Hold Your Fire, they really showed Rush. All right, when you it's the arrangements that make the song, like stuff like that. And they're working with them again on this album and Counterpunch, and that really came into play because now they're back to their classic sound, but now they're better songwriters, and it's really cool how they all came together. But I think Test for Echo is sort of like this is the end of this period, right? The 4 album period again. Here we are. Presta, Roll the Bones, Counterparts, and Test for Echo. And in that 4 album period, you could even subdivide it into twos. Roll the Bones and Presta was the first part coming out of the '80s, and now Counterparts and Test for Echo is sort of like the permanent waves and moving pictures of this era. And they're circling this time though. They're circling back into their classic sound. And with Test for Echo, they seem a little more relaxed. They seem a little more gelling with this new sound. Although it was an adjustment for them to deal with Neo rhythmically, but sonically, I think, and songwriting was, I think they sound a lot more confident and a lot more relaxed. And kind of feeling in, like with Hold Your Fire, I had that feeling too. Just feeling comfortable with what they're doing and all the elements coming together and just feeling a little bit more of a swagger, a little bit more of a confidence. There's more confidence in the songs, in the playing, and everything. And the title track, Test for Echo, sums that up even in that one song. So much confidence, so much swagger, so much like badassery. So that was that. That was around September. I love when albums come out in September. It's just so cool because it always reminds me of going back to schools. Even though I was done with college, I was done with school. It reminds you of that. It reminds you of like back when I was in high school. You know, you start a new school year and there's your favorite band has a new album, and you always remember that. It's always synchronicity to that. Now I wasn't going to schools. I was living life now. I was an adult, but it reminds you of that. Um, so yeah, new apartment. And I'm dealing with that, and that was a really nice thing to happen was the new Rush album. And eventually the album comes out. I'm also between the time going just backtracking a little bit. Between Counterparts and Test for Echo, I had joined a new band called Labyrinth, which became Unified Pass with guitar player Steve Spielman. This began my 10-year period with these guys, particularly Steve. I met him in 1995, and we became a band with this guy Pete and Matt in 95, 96. We made a few CDs with these guys. I was playing keyboards primarily, and I joined the band, and it was a really cool experience. So that happened. We were writing songs. We were playing some shows here and there. Very active, rehearsing a lot. That's the thing. We rehearsed our asses off just to record, to get ready to record the songs we were writing. So that was going on behind the scenes. So new changes in my life, new changes with Rush. The world's changing. A lot happened. You had the big OJ trial, OJ murders, and OJ trial. That went on for a while. I think the next 2 years, 94, 95, with the everything. That was a big thing. And that was sort of the beginning of the reality TV, changing the way we look at television. That changed everything. It's when current events happen and you see things on TV, and everything's on TV. Reality people want to see reality now, and that started influencing everything. That trial influenced everything between movies and TV. All of a sudden, everything on TV was reality TV, and it still is to this day. They've really milked it into something, with the body cam. You still have it now with the body cam, police cam stuff, and you name it. But Test for Echo, I think the song and album and all the craziness going on in the world kind of sums that up. So the new rest of the songs come out. And yeah, like I said, hearing all the songs, it just sounds very confident in the song. You have songs like "Half the World" and "Virtuality" and another instrumental, "Limbo." I'll talk about all the tracks. We had a really good tour after this album too, with the first evening with. Let's go down the songs. Test for Echo was the opening track. Like I said, grand opening for this album, showing off Neil with his new drum style. He was holding, I guess with drummers, it's the traditional grip, and had more of this little swing to it. The songs have more of a, they're not as, I guess, personally, I never found Rush's music to sound stiff to me. But other people have complained or criticized them for having, oh, Neil's starting to sound like a machine. I've heard that before. And like, I never felt like that. I never felt like you sound like a machine. To me, he's Neil. He's precise. Rush's music is technical music. That's just how it is, you know? Now, I can sort of understand, all right, hold your five power windows and everything. They were dealing with sequencers, so we had to be in sync. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So coming out of that, I think he was still trying to get better at, I don't know, playing tight, but also having, sounding human. I always thought Neil did that, but I guess to his liking, he wanted to improve that. So that's what he achieved when he learned from Freddy Krueger. And you can hear it on the album, but it took the guys in the band, it was an adjustment. It was an adjustment with their sense of time and everything. But Test for Echo, the song, really awesome. Once again, the sound is bass drum guitar mostly, very little keyboards. I wouldn't say a complete absence of keyboards. The next album will do that. But very in your face. Yet the opening thing, the arpeggios, has a very atmospheric. So bringing back other elements too. So there's a lot of the elements of counterparts, but bringing back other elements too. I think there's a little more variety on this record. And the opening arpeggios from Alex, very atmospheric. That's like quintessential Rush. And hearing the lyrics, vertigo, video, yeah, it's kind of like this dizzying feeling, like when you're looking at the world going on. It's like that today now, going crazy, man, with stuff going crazy, and it's like vertigo, like oh my god, what the hell's going on here? And that's kind of what the song's about. It's really not like a heavy meaning or anything. It's more just like a dizzying, like world just smacking you in the face, and you go, whoa, man, what the hell's going on here? Is anyone like seeing this? Are you kidding me? Like that's kind of what the song's saying. Like what the fuck, you know? But musically, I always respond to the songs musically, and when I heard the song, I just heard Rush going back to their roots and going back to their progginess and incorporating that in like a hard rock context. Maybe not in a hemisphere sort of way, but just you know, like with the drums and everything, and the changing feels, and just a lot of changes in the song, a lot of time changes, time signatures, and going back and forth from different moods and riffs and stuff. The song Test for Echo does that. There's so many parts in this song, and they do one thing that's really cool at the end of the song, and that's a key change. Rush hardly ever changes keys in this song, but the last verse in Test for Echo, coming out of the guitar solo and stuff, they do that, and it switches from one key to another. And I always think that's a very strong tool to use in a song. It really gives the song a lot of life. It changes scenery, you know. But that's really cool. The second song is called Driven. Now this song, Driven, literally is a great song for driving because that's when I heard it. Was when I was driving. I was driving to rehearsal, and I remember I had a CRX car, and what drive felt fast to me. I'm not a fast driver, but when I heard that song, I was driving. It's a great motion. Like music in motion is a great thing. We listen in a car. I haven't driven a car in over 15 years because I've been using mass transit. But when I used to have a car, I used to love putting on music and driving. And this song, Driven, is perfect for that. And again, mixing in so many time changes and time signatures, very complex drums in this song. And I love the new elements of switching from acoustic to electrics. It sounds like they're going into like a folky acoustic thing for like a few seconds, and then they switch right into a heavy. They kick you in the mouth with the into the chorus. And Getty's voice, you know, he figured out a great way to use his voice in these songs, knowing that going forward, he couldn't quite sing like he could back in the days of 2112 and Hemispheres. So he's applying his voice in other ways. And I think when Getty sings in the lower registers, it sounds pretty awesome. I love, and then Driven, I love, it just sounds perfect in that key that they're singing in. But great feel. And there's a lot of surprises too. Like the end of Driven, I think they double up the time and they go faster. And it just kicks so much ass. This song is badass. Driven. It was a shame they didn't bring it back after. I know they brought it back for Vapor Trails tour, but after that they didn't really return to Test for Echo. But it would have been nice if they played Driven, because Driven's one of my favorite tracks. Next song, Half the World. Half the World. Half the world does this, half the world does that. Pretty a simple concept with the lyrics, and it just goes around with each line, talking about that. But musically, to me, this sounds like a modern day Lakeside Park. It was a modern day Lakeside Park or something, you know. I think the other song on the album has acoustics, is a little bit of acoustics mixed in. Anyway, they mix in the acoustics and electrics together, but this sounds like it was definitely written on acoustic. Later on, the song "Resist." That's the other one. I'll talk about that. But these two songs, I think, remind me of the. It's like reminds me of early Rush, but in a modern way. You know, so it's a modern day version of like "In the End," or in this case, "Half the World." It reminds me a lot of Lakeside Park. That's what it sounds like to me. Some people might think I'm nuts for saying that, but that's what it sounds like to me. At least the guitar parts, anyway, and to a lot of degree, the vocals as well. Really good song. I think the next song though is a lot better, and that's "Color of Right." "Color of Right." That's a hidden gem. You want to talk about Rush hidden gems? Track 4 on Test Record, "The Color of Right." Put that one on. Really, really great song, and it's not like a flashy song or anything, but it's just got great feel, great vocals, or great catchy chorus. Um, really good song. I want to do a cover of it. That's how much I love it. Especially the chorus. The chorus has great harmonies with the vocals and all that. But then we got, what else we got? After that, "Color of Right's" really good. "Time and Motion," really proggy, almost like this song's "Natural Science," um, showing off Alex's guitar solo, showing how he could just really surprise you with some really sick guitar solo. I mean, he just goes off on that one. It's a not long guitar solo, but he just shows how unique he could be. Making up sounds like, what the hell is he doing? Like, it's like, but it reflects the lyrics in the song, "Time and Motion." Boxcars in a train. Each day is like boxcars in a train. It's so true. In our life, you know, everything's connected from our entire life. All your memories, all the different things. Um, so the lyrics reflect that. "Color of Rights," you know, like I say, the lyrics are very direct. I think on this album, a lot of them. You know, "The Color of Right." It's about quality, justice, quantity, like, you know, it's just what's right? What's right to you? You know, um, you got things like that. Then you got, Neil gets deep with certain lyrics too, like Totem. That's the next track after Time in Motion. And Totem brings back, again, mixing electrics and acoustics. It's another side to this album. This album has a lot of heaviness, um, but also mixing in the acoustics a lot, which they did more with than with Counterparts, I thought. Counterparts had what? Nobody's Hero, I think. And the rest of the album was all electric, electric, electric. Whereas Test for Echo's kind of mixing them together and having fun with that, having the layering. It's a little more layered, I think, with that. And that's what you're getting with a lot of these songs. Half the World does that, where, like I said, it definitely sounds like acoustic, but they're together. Like, it's all layered together, playing at the same time. Because that's what's really cool is when you have a really cool guitar part where you strum it and go, whoa, when I play this to a Marshall or something, it sounds really awesome. So they both sound good, so why not layer them? And that's what they do a lot of these songs. And it sounds really thick, the tracks. Um, but Totem does that a lot. Very proggy. Lyrically, he's talking about a lot of deep subjects. I still, it's one of those songs I still don't know the complete thing of what he's talking about. But um, I'll get into lyrics another time where I really dive into it, trying to analyze it. But I get off on the music mostly, and Totem's one of those songs where I'm not sure exactly what he's talking about lyrically, but I guess he's talking about different things with totems. Sound like, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about because that's a song I have to look at. But the lyrics definitely, the music definitely looks like it reflects the lyrics. It's very tribal and very, just sounds very organic. That's the thing about sound, very organic. There's further away from the '80s now. They're very entrenched with this new sound. Like I said, returning to their classic roots. So Totem's a very extension of that. I think that ends side one though. There's no real sides on this, but if it was a record, I'd be flipping it over, and then Dog Years, I think would kick it off. To me, I've always felt like Dog Years kicks off the second half. Now this song, a lot of controversy. A lot of people list this as one of their least favorite Rush songs. I don't have a problem with Dog Years. I don't know what the problem is. The song cranks. The song is one of the heaviest songs musically on the album. Really kicks ass. I mean, for the opening riff there, I mean, thrash it out. What's the problem with that? You know, what? Because the song's called Dog Years. That's the dog in the title. Who cares? The lyrics are a little bit goofy, but so what? Neil writes mostly pretty serious lyrics most of the time, majority of the time. Isn't he entitled to write a song that's like kind of having fun, little tongue in cheek, whatever? That's just the way I see it. Other people, they hear doggies, they think, oh, I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. I mean, by the way, they have a song called "By Toward the Snow Dog." Nobody. That song is kind of goofy too, if you think about it, with the lyrics. Even though it kicks ass, the music, but no, that song kicks ass. Obviously, "By Toward the Snow Dog" kicks ass. But the lyrics are kind of silly in that song. They're having fun. Well, so what doggies? So same thing with doggies. Who cares? I think it's a badass song. I have no problem with it. Just like on Holy Fire, I have no problem with Ty Sean, even though Alex and Getty has come out and said on that album, they don't like that song. Um, when people talk about their least favorite Rush song, I'm always like, why? What's the big deal? Well, Dog Years gets a lot of that. Gets a lot. Oh, Dog Years. I think it's fun. It's nothing wrong with that song. I have no problem with that song. Me. Virtuality, really cool song. This is one another thing in the world that was happening. The internet. Now I wasn't on the internet yet, but the internet was was starting to catch fire and people getting into it. I think 94, 95, 96. So now Neil's trying to talk about it. Neil's talking about it in his songs, Virtuality. And the lyrics are really cool, talking about the song is so ahead of its time. It really is. We know they talk about modems. We don't really do we use modems anymore? No, we don't use dial-up anymore. But it doesn't matter because even now, 2023, fast forward with the internet being so much light years better, it's still the same thing. You know, you have your life, and then for me, it's like you have your life, and then there's your virtual life, whether it be on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, you know, and it's definitely a thing. And he's talking about it in this song, blurring the line between reality and virtuality, you know, and the two different things. So he talks a lot about that in this song. It's, like I said, it's not deep lyrics. It's just looking at the world going around them and responding to it. You know, I think songs like Test for Echo and this talk about that. Talk about that a lot. Half the World, same thing. Um, but the one thing musically, virtuality, this song rocks. This song fucking rocks. And the music definitely, I love how Alex and Getty, they look at the lyrics and they try to make the sounds from their guitars and everything reflect that. Or even if back in the 80s, whether it be the keyboards or the guitar, they'll always use the music as a soundtrack. Getty always said that, use it as like a soundtrack to lyrics. No exception with virtuality. When you get to the verses, you know, they use a lot of dissonance. That's one thing Alex and getting into is dissonance. They're incorporating more dissonance in some of the parts in their guitars and basses. You'll see that more in songs like Freeze, on Vapor Trails and other ones. Dissonance and weird sort of parts in the songs, but it works because they're talking about the machinery, the modem and the internet and sending you know, electronically and different things. You know, so the music reflects that, and then in the choruses and everything, it just rocks out like a motherfucker. So really awesome rock song. These songs sound better live too. When you see them live, really bombastic. I think Caveman Shirley and them and the guys that helped record them got a really nice crunchy sound when it came to the heaviness of this. Now look, they're not heavy like Metallica. I know that. I'm not calling Rush heavy like in that way. They're hard rock. They're hard rock. But when Rush does hard rock, for them, it does sound heavy. It rumbles the building. I remember going to Radio City in 2004, and I was next to the stage door, and I heard them rehearsing during the rehearsal, sound check, and the building was shaking. When Rush goes heavy, they go heavy. It might not be heavy the way Metallica or Pantera or something, but for Rush, believe me, it rocks. And Virtuality is one of those songs that when you hear it live, it fucking rocks. They never brought that song. It's another song they never brought back. They should have. Really good song. Resist, they brought back a lot though. Resist is the next track, and as Getty has said, it's kind of a folk song. This song is kind of like a modern day In the End. If Half the World's a modern day Lakeside Park, well, Resist is a modern day In the End. I really felt like that, and I still feel like that. But on this tour, they played it the full way, like the album. But on Vapor Trails going forward, they would always use this song in there. Not the encore, but after Neil's solo, Getty Alex did an unplugged segment of the concert, and they always brought back Resist because Getty felt like it's just like a folk song, and it is. Really good lyrics. Learn to resist. The keyboard part, you can tell Getty writes keyboards because he has a certain way of playing the riffs on the keyboard sometimes. That riff reminds me of Lock and Key a lot, but in this context, though, it sounds a little different. But when Geddy plays those keyboards like that, it's like he has a certain patterns he does with his hands. I noticed. Um, like, oh, that's Geddy. You can tell it's Geddy playing keyboards when he does that. But that's a cool little hook in the song. That's Lock and Key, but in this one it's it's a similar pattern with the fingers doing this back and forth sort of thing. And it works with the guitar. I'm just talking about the arrangements really, in a general way. But great little folk song, modern day in the end. The next song, Limbo, the instrumentals are usually my favorite tracks on the whole record. I love their instrumentals. Limbo is no exception. That's such a unique. Out of all the, I like the fact that they gave us three instrumentals. Where's My Thing? On Roll the Bones. Leave That Thing Alone on the last one, and then now Limbo, which are arguably some of my favorite tracks on the albums. I don't know why, but Rush's natural state is instrumentals. And Alex is so. I think Alex really shines on this one. They all do, of course. Of course. Neil's incredible, very jazzy, very funk, very. I love when they go down this road of fusion, jazzy, mixing it with the hard rock stuff and doing it in a Rush way. That is just so cool, man. I wish they would do a whole album of that, but they can't do it anymore. Neil's no longer with us, unfortunately. But I always loved it when Rush went down that avenue, instrumentals, because they always would revisit that. And Limbo does that. It's so atmospheric. Alex, like, what is he doing? Like, there's so many things going on, and it's all one part coming from Alex. Sounds like three or four guitars. Now a lot of fans look too far. Main Monkey Business later on Snakes and Arrows is like that too. Atmospheric, not as flashy. We're not going for. They're not trying to be Lavie Stradier anymore. Why was he? Although I think later on they kind of did that with Narcissus, but which was cool. But I like when they go down this road, the atmospherics and just like I don't know, just making an instrumental that just really flows and really surprises you. A lot of surprises in their instrumentals. All right, final track, Carve Away the Stone. Perfect ending to an album. Really sums it all up. Really rocks. A lot of time changes going on. Time signatures. Carve Away the Stone. Kind of reminds me a lot of Hand Over Fist with the lyrics. But I think Neil has some really good lyrics in there. But overall, solid record. I mean, it's a lot going on. It's a long record. What was this 12 tracks? 11 tracks. 11 tracks, but I think if this was a record, it might be a double album because it feels like a long album when you listen. And I mean that in a bad way. It's a lot going on. But I'm trying to get through with these later albums. There's so many songs. I'm just trying to talk about this as quickly as I can because I know it goes on for a long time when there's more songs. Next album I think has 13 tracks. Vapor Trails. But anyway, so I'll be talking about that one for a while. Next up, by the way, that'll be my next album I talk about is Vapor Trails. But those are the tracks on here. Overall, very rocking album, mixing in with acoustics and some bringing them back. Really, really establishing. I think more so than Counterpart, their classic sound. These two albums brought that back, and I think going forward, the rest of their career would be like their classic sound, one way or another. I know it varied from album to album as far as the overall direction. Obviously, Vapor Trails, a very sort of urgency, a lot of urgency on that record. It took them a long time to get back. We'll be talking about that next record. Very emotional record. But going forward, the classic sound though is back. Um, and almost pretty much zero keyboards going forward. There's a little bit on this one, like a limbo and stuff. But basically, almost complete opposites of keyboards. Um, Fan reception, it was mixed reactions to Neil's changes with his drums, and I think, at this point, I think some of the fans were starting to take him for granted. I did not. I did not. Um, the vocals, I heard criticisms about Getty's vocals. Look, you sing the part in the song that fits the song. Um, but people were saying, oh yeah, the song Test for Echo, like they didn't like the lyrics or the video Vertigo. I think it works. I think the lyrics and the music fit each other and reflect the times. That's just my opinion. But some people didn't dig it. They were thinking of it. I think it's the moving pictures. Test for Echo is the moving pictures of Rush's '90s period. That is Festa, Roll the Bones, Counterparts, Test for Echo. This is the moving pictures. Counterparts is sort of like permanent waves of this period, in my opinion. The only difference, like I said, is they're circling back to their classic sound, and I think they achieved that, and I achieved that more with this record, and I think even more so the next three. I think the next three even better. They go even further with that, I think. But now look, Neil had his tragedies after the tour, so I think I really thought that this might be their last record after that when that happened. If it had been their last, what I'm trying to say is if this had been their last album, I would have been fine with it. I would have been like bummed out, but like okay, at least they landed on a good note. They ended on a good because this album was really solid. If that was their swan song, I would have been okay. That works. Now I'm glad it's not because I think Vapor Trails destroys it. I think Snakes and Arrows destroys it, and I think definitely Clockwork Angels destroys it. But that's Rush for you. They always if they do another album, if they did another album at the Clockwork Angels, I think it might be better too. But Neil passed, and that's it. But this tour, though, the one thing about this record, though, was the tour. The first time ever Rush did an evening round, a 3-hour show, 2 set lists, separated by 20 minutes, no opening act. And I really think they should have done this in the tours before that, like Roll the Bones and Presto, because there's a lot of songs from those albums and that they could have played. But never too late, better late than never, right? So they did it on the Test for Echo tour, and they really benefited from doing that because now they had more control over their shows. They could do more songs because that's what was happening is they were doing their shows, and they were good and all. They were great. I mean, a Rush show is an amazing experience, but invariably you got so many fans from different generations, from the early days all through the '80s and now the '90s, all wanting to hear their favorite songs, and there's always going to be people complaining, oh, they didn't play this, they didn't play that. Because Rush is like, I remember on Counterpart, I think they skipped Grace Under Pressure. They're always like having to leave stuff out because, all right, we got more new songs, but we want to play more old songs. We're getting all these pressure to play more old songs. Now, with the 3-hour show, they could do everything they want to do. Like, go nuts with the new album, play a million songs, but also they did 2112 in its entirety, the song, in its entirety. It was badass. Now, they had the detune the guitars, I think, down 2 whole steps, I think. And it worked. It totally worked. They should have done that a long time ago because it really helped Geddy's vocals. I know some of the purists thought that was like, oh, don't be doing that. But I think a song like 2112, or later on they did it with Circumstances, or Snakes and Arrows, works because then Geddy can really sing it. I think they did it on Clockwork Angels. No, the R40 tour, they did Prelude Hemisphere. They did the same thing where they tuned it down 2 whole steps, I think it is. on the guitars and basses. They didn't do that with every song; they just did it with certain songs. And when they did that, Geddy was really able to sing his parts more comfortably and more like the old album, more like the original. And they did that with 2112, and it sounded great. I think it sounded heavier too. It sounded heavier. I loved the live version of 2112 on. I think it was Different Stages. That was a live album. This tour was great, and they also brought back Natural Signs as well. So they were able to do not only older songs, but like long, 10-minute tracks like Natural Signs, Free Will. They played it in its entirety because they were cutting it off after the guitar solo the previous tours. So they were really pulling out the stops with this tour, not worrying about, oh, we got 3 hours, 2 hours, how can we fit everything? Now they can just really stretch it out. So the shows were better. I saw them twice on this tour. Once at Jones Beach, once at the Nassau Coliseum, and Geddy singing was on point. I think technology was getting better too. I think a lot of bands were using the sort of headphone monitors, so singers could hear themselves better, and I think that benefited Geddy. Like I said, the fans' reception and reaction to the album was mixed, but I think overall the tour was really good. I loved it, and it was a fun album. Now the sad thing is, though, it would be their last record. Really, it almost became their actual last record ever with Neil's Tragedies, and that's what happened. That's what would come up after this. But I'll talk more about that with Vapor Trails because I think that Vapor Trails has more connection to that than this does. This connection is only it's the last one before that, and it came this close to being their last album. It really did. And if it had, I would have been like, all right, it's sad, but okay, it's a solid record. At least they finished on a good note. But I'm glad that's not what happened. I'm glad they were able to go forward, and they did. They topped this album later on. But for what it's worth, it's the moving pictures of the '90s, and it's a solid record. One of my favorites. I love going back to it. Um, that's pretty much all I gotta say. Try to with these albums with more songs on it. These Rush albums. Remember the first Rush albums I was talking about was Signals and Grace Under Pressure, Power. They had 8 tracks between them. So these ones you got double digits. So it's taking me longer to talk about it all. Try not to ramble on too much. That's basically it. I really love Test for Echo. Really loved the tour. Had a great time with it. Although what happened afterwards was said. I didn't really find out about Neil's thing till like 2 years in. You know, but at least at the time I enjoyed this tour. It was a lot of changes going on, even during this during when they were touring. Like I said, I had a new apartment. I was adjusting to trying to find a good job. I think I finally left King Cullen. I was working there for 10 years. I finally got out of there and moved on. So I was going through a lot of changes myself and dealing with having an apartment and really becoming an adult and responsibilities in a big way. So it was a difficult period for me that I was going through. A lot of ups and downs. It was kind of a dark period, really. That 95, 96 to 99. But there was positives. I was in my band and learning about that and having a new apartment and dealing with that and trying to find a suitable job so I can pay the bills. But the music is always there for me through the ups and downs. And, you know, come to now, I just forget about the bad and remember the good. And one of the goods is just it was a good record. And when I put it on, I really enjoy it. So that's about it. So tell me where you were when you heard Test for Echo. Was it your first Rush album? Are you like me, following them from earlier, and then, you know, because that's what this is. I'm talking about my journey and what I think about the album. But even though I'm recording it now, maybe some of you don't watch this until maybe a day later, or a month later, or a year later. You can still talk about it with me in the comments about where you were with Test for Echo, what your feelings on this record was. We all have different opinions. different albums, different songs mean different things to us. It's all cool. So let's hear it. What you gotta say, and let's have a discussion back and forth. And I will revisit these albums, as I always say, and music. I want to do reactions to the actual songs. So I'm gonna come back and actually put the songs on individually and try to do reactions to them. I gotta figure out how to do that. I see a lot of other fans doing that. I definitely want to do that. It's a big project, but I'm going to do the same thing, album to album, song to song. At least try to at some point. But right now, I'm just trying to do the discussions like this and get those done. But eventually, I want to do the actual songs. So, a lot on my plate, but tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. That's about it. Next time around, I'm going to talk about Vapor Trails. And it should be really fun because I really love that album. I think as much as I love this album and as much as I feel that Test for Echo is the moving pictures of the 90s, I think Vapor Trails for the 2000s and for Rush destroys this album and pretty much all the 90s records. Vapor Trails is a really good album, but I'm going to talk about that next time as we get into the next sort of chapter in Rush, and that's the sort of post Neil Peart tragedies, 2000s, millennia Rush era, which is 3 albums, but very huge album, very important records. But the next one's Vapor Trails. So see you next time, and peace out.